So I just got back from seeing the new Ye film called In Whose Name. This was my second time seeing a Ye film in theaters. The first time was for the Jesus is King film, which I saw when I was in Orlando for my birthday trip to Halloween Horror Nights with my brother. It was in IMAX. It felt just more like a normal film. I guess since it was shot in a wide format, it was in IMAX, whatever. But that was cool. So I saw that. I didn't get to see the theatrical release of the Yeezy Season 1. I really wanted to see that, but I wasn't able to get tickets for that. I remember that when I was in college. I've seen the Genius documentary on Netflix, and to be honest, I was kind of disappointed by that series. It kind of followed the director's point of view more than Ye's. So, anyways, this was the second theatrical release for a Ye film that I'd seen. And thinking back to Yeezy Season 1, that was when Ye or Kanye at the time still had a lot of hype, especially in the US. I feel like the hype, at least for where I live in the US, has kind of died down, and that was pretty evident from going to see the film in theaters tonight. There weren't many people there, but back in the day when he did the theatrical release for Yeezy Season 1, his first official fashion show, there was a lot of hype behind it. And I haven't really seen that kind of hype for this film. I have seen a lot of clips on social media, but going in person, there weren't a lot of people there, which was a benefit for me because I didn't have to worry about getting a ticket. I did pre-order my ticket, but, just in case, but I didn't really need to. There were 6 people in the theater, including myself. So, it worked out for me. So this documentary was broken up into several parts, and it started with the prelude. And it opens with a scene of Ye and a young North sitting in the back of a car, and North says something to Ye about not falling asleep. He says, "Well, I better not fall asleep again." And this was the beginning of the film. After that opening scene, we cut to Lady Gaga on the screen, which I did not expect. There were a lot of things that I did not expect to see in this film that were really cool to see. And seeing Gaga talking about what would have been the collab concert between Ye and Gaga was super cool as a big fan of both of them. The tour was going to be called the Fame Kills Tour, and Gaga is kind of explaining the concept and the idea behind it, which was really cool. I've never seen that kind of footage before. There was a lot of footage in the film that was like really exclusive, never before seen footage, or at least I hadn't seen it before. So I was really surprised by all of that. And I felt like overall this documentary was the type of documentary that Ye fans and just people who are interested have been wanting to see. The film kind of starts on this high of Kanye's career before the kind of perceived ending or the killing off of the Kanye that everyone grew to love. And it kind of begins the transformation into the free Kanye that we see today. So we see footage from the graduation tour, and we see Amber Rose, him celebrating, cutting a cake. There was a really interesting scene of him holding this like kind of kitchen knife, and he was intoxicated, had been drinking Hennessy, and it kind of hints at this beginning of a crazy Kanye. We see behind the scenes footage of the Taylor Swift incident, and then it quickly goes into the Runaway performance comeback, which was on the VMAs when he was in the red suit, and there's the celebration, and that's pretty much the prelude. We then go into Act 1, which opens with the big shot of all the Yeezy clothes displayed in a, like kind of a circle. That's been circulating a lot online. And the topic of mental health is introduced, and kind of this idea of life after the hospital. We see Drake. We are introduced to the Trump era, and we see Kanye talking to Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. So that was pretty interesting to see, especially after recent events. In Act 1, we also see footage of Kanye moving back to Chicago, and these really intimate moments with him and Kim talking about this decision, and Kim not really taking seriously these thoughts that Kanye has, and like we start developing this theme of Kanye not being understood, which is kind of an overarching theme of the film and his life. We also see the beginning of this kind of spiritual connection that he's developing. We also see footage of the time where he wore the red hat on SNL. There was this member of SNL who confronted him after the show. It shows the rant and everything. And then Ye is off to the White House. There's this conversation that Ye is having with Kim after the SNL performance and supporting Trump, wearing the MAGA hat. And Kim tells Kanye that he's going to wake up one day and have nothing. And this really triggers Ye, and he's really affected by those words and is surprised that his wife is telling him this. It's clear that she's very tied to the brands that she's associated with and companies that she works for. E in particular, who started her whole career with Keeping Up with the Kardashians. She doesn't see his yearning for freedom and yearning for the truth, and he doesn't see her longing for a sense of stability for her kids and her future. So they are both having conflicting feelings, obviously. Then we go into the scene where Kanye is confronting Chris about the mental health issues and locking him up, hospitalizing him, which, as someone who's been Baker acted before, I can totally understand the feeling of betrayal and abandonment when someone hospitalizes you against your will. There have been a lot of clips of this scene circulating, so I'm sure you've probably seen it, but he gets very loud and aggressive when talking to Chris. He's very passionate and very hurt. During this conversation, Chris says something that I thought was interesting. She says, "I don't want you to not be perfect." So that particular quote stuck out to me, and I'm sure there's a reason they put it in the film, but it's very clear that the Kardashian brand is all about being perfect. A very curated life. The show's very curated, very scripted. They show us what they want us to see. And that does not align with Ye's spirit at all. He doesn't want to be perfect. He wants to be real. He wants to speak the truth, to speak his mind, and to live freely. And then Ye and Kim and North go to Uganda, and it looks kind of like the same kind of setting as where the Netflix docuseries Genius kind of started out. We see him wearing the bulletproof vest, and doing some briefings and getting really heated when people are telling him no. And it's very clear that Ye does not want to be controlled. Kim's trying to explain to him that she's been told no and it's part of business, it's part of life, but Ye does not want to be controlled. After that, we go to Basel, Switzerland, which he references in Kids See Ghosts. I don't know if this is the same era or not, but it's definitely tied into that album somehow. He meets with these architects and starts planning his future kind of compound idea, his future living structure, society kind of ideas, and he starts to feel a little understood by the architects. So we're getting some sense of understanding there. After that scene, he is in the car and having a conversation on the phone about wanting to step away from politics and step back into creativity and helping the world, refocusing on his music. He admits that he isn't very strong in, the political world, and he just wants to get back to creating, which there's this theme of him kind of conquering one area of his life, fashion, music, politics, and then going to the next thing and getting bored easily, it seems, which as a creative I can relate to, but that's just something I noticed. Then we see some behind the scenes footage of the shooting for the greatest music video and single that never came out, New Body, featuring Nicki Minaj. We don't see Nicki Minaj in the film, but we do see Ye wearing this cat costume, this kind of cat mask kind of thing. And he's having this really deep conversation in the car about something, wearing this cat mask, and that clip has been circulating a lot too. And it was kind of funny. There are a lot of funny moments in this film. Like, sometimes Kanye will just say something and it just makes me laugh. He's low-key kind of funny. So that kind of wrapped up Act 1, and then we're into Act 2, which begins with the Sunday service in 2019. He talks about how he came up with the idea when he was in the hospital, and we're coming back to this overarching theme of searching for acceptance, wanting to be understood. And I feel like he found this with the Sunday service and, as he put it, being delivered. He said he was delivered 4 months into doing Sunday service, and he's been on this spiritual path and finding acceptance through religion, through God, through Jesus, and he's very moved by that. And I kind of was thinking about how this kind of relates to addicts and alcoholics in recovery, and how having a higher power or believing in God or just someone beyond our understanding, some kind of higher power, brings us this sense of belonging, acceptance, and just the idea that we can overcome these really difficult things in our life. And I think it was really cool to kind of see this moment through that perspective. And this part of the film kind of ties into that Jesus is King film that I was talking about, and using these really simple architectural designs and sound settings which were featured in that film. We also see Ye appearing as a guest on the Joel Osteen show or at a Joel Osteen service. It was really cool kind of seeing that footage, because I remember seeing pictures of him being at the Joel Osteen service, but never really saw a video from it, so that was cool to see that. We also see Ye visiting prisons with the Sunday service choir, who he traveled a lot with during that time, and it was really powerful seeing the impact he was having on these inmates. And that was something that I don't remember seeing covered very much in the media, but I thought it was really cool to see and really inspiring to see. We then go to Wyoming, and that's kind of the start of him purchasing these big pieces of property, these ranches, and him announcing his running for president. We also see the Charleston, South Carolina speech where he got really emotional talking about abortion, about how his mom saved his life by not getting an abortion, about how he almost took his daughter's life by asking Kim to have an abortion, but Kim ended up saving Nora's life. And he got really emotional about that, and he was explaining how it would not be normal for him to not react that way. So I thought that was interesting, and it makes sense. I mean, that's pretty powerful, and having emotions in the public isn't really something that we celebrate or encourage. So for people to see that, especially from someone as powerful and influential as Ye, it's not really normal. Uh, should it be? Sure, why not? I think that emotions are valid, and I think a lot of times we get desensitized by things like that. And with recent events, I've seen a lot of people who are kind of desensitized to death, killings, shootings, and that's not normal. It's not healthy, it's not normal. And then we see headlines from that time when Kim was considering divorce after the comments that Kanye made about their daughter. And that kind of wraps up Act 2. Then we go into Act 3, which is starting out with the Donda listening party era in 2022. And we see behind the scenes footage of that, which wasn't really new because during that era we saw a lot of behind the scenes footage from the live streams that he did with Apple. So it was so cool to see, though. Something that was new from that era was his kind of interactions with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk talking about his then wife Grimes, or I don't know if they were married, but at least his baby mama Grimes. And I've never heard him really talk about her, so that was interesting to see. And he was kind of asking Ye for advice about relationship issues, it seemed. I didn't really hear him clearly, but that's the kind of vibe I was getting. And it made me think about how Ye is really good about humanizing people. Even someone as untouchable, it seems, as Elon Musk, who is, a very wealthy and powerful man. But Ye is able to humanize him on that kind of level where he's just asking his friend about relationship advice. And this can also be seen in his projects like the famous music video where he had the wax sculptures of different influential and powerful people. And even though they weren't real, it really kind of, the whole purpose of that project was to kind of humanize these powerful people and to have us see that they're the same as us. They, when they're in bed, when they're naked and vulnerable, they're just like us. And I think that's the whole point of what Ye wants to prove, is that we're all human, we're all the same. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but towards the end of the film, he says his goal is to break labels. People have labeled him as black, gay, anti-Semitic, rich, poor, all these things, and that's what he's aiming to break. And by using his art and his voice to humanize people, that's what he's aiming to do. Then we're getting to the part where we talk about Ye's net worth, which I think at the highest point was $6.6 billion, which made him the richest black man in history at that point. After this, he leaves fashion to focus on building his school, and it shows footage of the school, the kids there, and his daughter there. In Act 3, we also see footage from the Yeezy Season 9 fashion show, which was in Paris when he debuted the White Lives Matter shirt that he and Candace Owen wore, which caused a lot of controversy. This kind of transitioned into his anti-Semitic era where he really was challenging freedom of speech, and through his voice and through his opinions and the things that he said, we see the media, as he put it, the media wins and is finally able to shut him down. It then cuts to this small church and kind of feels like a really humble setting of people praying for him. And then we get into the epilogue. So the epilogue starts in 2024, and he keeps talking about how he feels like a masochist because he does these self-sabotaging things and kind of sets things on fire, and especially when he's doing really well, which I can relate a lot to. I've done that in the past. He kind of has this external dialogue about, should I have blown up on Gap or should I have blown up Adidas? And he said the answer is yes. It's clear that he does not regret these things. He has thoughts about it, but ultimately he's living out his truth and living life on his terms. And there's this kind of meta conversation about the through line of the film. And after they're talking about, what is this through line, this director, this videographer, this filmmaker has been following Ye for all these years and filming every waking and non-waking moment of his life. Then we cut to the scene in the car that's from the beginning of the film with North, and North says, "No sleeping, you'll explode." And that's kind of the end of it. So it kind of comes full circle. And I guess that's, the kind of theme or the through line of the film is you have to stay awake to things going on in the world or you'll explode. So I guess the question is Kanye West a genius or is he just crazy? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I would love to know if you've seen the film, if you plan on seeing it, if you will never see it in your life. I would love to know your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I also have a podcast called Wisdom Wayne, and I make other vlogs and videos, music videos. So if you want to check those out, head over to my channel and yeah, take a look around. Thank you. Bye.